My argument against relativism is that it's obviously false because we can find clear case examples of right and wrong. That when violated, we can identify and find fault with those who say do the wrong thing and even punish them. And such couldn't be the case if relativism were true. Well, this question asks, how do you handle the hardcore relativist that freely admits he doesn't believe he can tell a child rapist he's wrong? What do you do when graphically describing something horrible like that doesn't successfully move the person's conscience? Now, if in fact it doesn't successfully move the person's conscience, then there's something terribly wrong with the person. People without a conscience that responds to these things are characteristically called sociopaths, people without consciences. My suspicion, though, is that most people who make this statement are not sociopaths, they're defending turf. That is, they want to say something that sounds so ridiculous just because they don't want to give up their view. But under other circumstances, when they're not defending turf, their actions, or I should say their reactions, readily indicate that they do believe firmly in objective moral reality and in praise and blame that follows from it. Think about this. If a hardcore relativist freely admits he does not believe he can tell a child rapist that he's wrong, then that relativist cannot prosecute the rapist for doing the rape. If he does, it's a raw exercise of power that has nothing to do with justice, because justice is a function of objective morality, and in the relativistic world there is no objective morality, and therefore there is no justice. So he would have to then say, we can't punish that person. But if you can't punish a rapist, you can't punish anyone in virtue of the issue of justice for doing something wrong. You can only exercise your power against people who do things you don't like. But then what is to adjudicate that exercise of power? Well, the person who gets to enforce what he likes is the person with the greatest power, and therefore might makes right. So the hardcore relativist is going to have to freely acknowledge that power is the only legitimate adjudicator of behaviors. And so if you could oppress the relativist for his relativism simply because you have more power, then he would have to say that's a perfectly legitimate move. Now, again, I think what's happening here is that they are able to have this calm discussion about rejecting obvious moral truths and accepting ridiculous positions like there's no justification for punishing a child rapist because they're defending turf. But watch their reactions. Watch when they're not having a calm, intellectual discussion about morality, but when it just comes down to them responding to the circumstances. And you will see that they are quick to make moral judgments that it is very clear in their reaction they think are bona fide moral assessments of a circumstance, and that justice ought to have been done in a circumstance where they think injustice prevails. This happens all the time. And this is why I say there's no real relativist unless somebody is genuinely sick, a sociopath. Because properly functioning human beings can tell the difference between egregious right between egregious wrongs and rights, and wants the second one applauded and the first one punished. It's because they're aware that there's objective morality, and they can't get around that.